for me, the Americans are much more optimistic, they're very positive, there's this can-do attitude, like you can do it. And in France, it's more like, prove it. Yeah, like you're my girlfriend now.
Yeah.
If you say that to an American person, I think they will have a heart attack. Come to France so you can find beauty in the everyday things.
So today's guest is someone who turned a love for the French culture into a community. So Lucille, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. We both this evening, it's an evening, they don't know that, in Paris. It's cold outside, but it's warm in here.
Exactly.
So you started the French Vibe Club.
Exactly.
It's grown massively.
It has, yeah. It's basically a community that shares a love for France, and mainly American people are following it, but it's a very international audience as well.
And also, before starting that, it's funny because you were kind of made for this, because you worked for Chamber of Commerce, the Franco Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, the International Chamber of Commerce, yes, here in Paris. And my team was actually very international, and it taught me a lot. I really enjoyed that experience.
So the international one, I've seen like there's the Franco-British, there is the Franco-American, so that was like, there is an umbrella one, or?
Yeah, so it's actually the world's largest organization for business, and it's present in most countries, and so the headquarters are actually in Trocadero, which was a very nice lunch view to have, but basically it oversees every business worldwide, so it's massive.
Wow,
yeah.
Well, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, you just taught me something.
Thank you.
So you also travel.
Yeah.
When you're abroad, what do you miss most in France? Because we're here to sell France after all.
Yes, that's a great question. I think there's only one answer to that. It's good bread. Good bread is the first one. It's very difficult to find. I don't want to be too critical because there are some nice bakeries sometimes, but it's very hard to find, this actual French bread. Because people call it bread, but really it's not so much like that. And yeah, good food in general, I would say. Not that it's bad, but, especially in the US, it's a little more processed. It's more difficult to find fresh ingredients sometimes. So that's definitely what I miss the most.
Oh, I won't argue with that. I'm 100% in. So yeah. There's also some, cultural differences, which are like, obviously I'll talk about the cliches, but we're here for that. The French, you say that we're being taught from a very young age to be kind of critics, and versus, for example, the American cultures, where they're more, I wouldn't say they sugarcoat, but they're more,
optimistic.
Yeah, they're more friendly up front. Yeah. I mean. So those are two very different approaches. What do you say are the difference here? I mean, why the differences, and do you think those cliches have legs?
Yeah, I think they're very true. So for me, the Americans are much more optimistic. They're very positive. There's this can-do attitude, like you can do it. And in France, it's more like prove it. It's like we want to know.
Summing it up.
We want to know how you can make it happen. So I like to. Honestly, my page is also that, like it's a mix of both mentalities, because I do enjoy that very optimistic and positive approach. I think it's necessary to have that in life because it allows you to do more things and be more curious. But then the French side, I would say, is more practical, and sometimes, people are a little scared, like they think they need to be experts in their field before trying something. Which I think is unfortunate because sometimes you may lose great opportunities thinking like that when you can just try and get better.
So in your view, you'd say like France, let's say perfectionism, let's call it that, maybe is holding some people back.
I would say so, yeah. A little more optimistic nature would do good to all of us.
Well, also same cliche with the Americans. They're also seen as maybe, I wouldn't say oversharing, but like you were saying, overly enthusiastic, we could say overly sharing or stuff like this. Whereas the French are seen as more reserved, and it's more difficult to break into a circle of friends and stuff like this. what would you say? You know, there's good in both cultures, but you know, what do you care to comment about that?
Yeah, so I think it's also just a different communication style, because often when I'm in the US, I hear, you know, that French people are rude and very cold and not that nice. And I ask, did you say bonjour when you enter the store? Did you, you know, because we all have in our countries different ways of communicating that are important. I think in France we value politeness a lot. So when you enter a store or when you go somewhere to say, you know, thank you, bye, it's very important to us. And it may not be as important in other places. So I think it's just a different communication style. We have our own and Americans have their own. And I think a little mix of both is nice. You know, they're very different, but complementary, right. I would say.
Yeah, no, and you know, for example, because you're not from Paris originally as well, for example, the Parisian, we have this cliche that the Parisians are rude. First, I don't know if you agree with that, and would you say it's actually a cliche, or maybe it's a bit, you know, like people don't understand the culture?
Well, I would say, you know, I grew up in the countryside, but my parents are actually from here, and my family is here, my uncle, my cousins, etc. So I've seen both sides of France, let's say Paris and the more countryside aspect. I would say it's true that Parisians they just function a little differently, right? But it's like in any big city. If you go to New York, you know, people, for them, it's not a museum. They live here. So they're in a hurry, they want to go home, you know, they want to catch their train. So it might not be as friendly as a city where you have a slower pace of life. But I would say it depends, like everywhere, who you meet.
Of course. Well, different countries, different cultures. Maybe we can go with some spicy time. The dating culture, I don't know if you've experienced both angles or both sides, or maybe you've seen that. What would you say might be different between, you know, dating in France versus dating in the US, as far as you know?
Yeah. So what I've seen is that I think French culture is more spontaneous, and it doesn't put labels as much as in the US. I feel like in the US it's a little more structured, a little more standardized, you know, like where are we going? Yeah. And you have more steps, I would say, maybe like, you know, what are we? When are we official? When are you introducing me to...
That's literally a sentence that no French native would say.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that, you know, before moving to the US. So I was like, okay, completely different way of approaching it. But then it can be... I think both sides have good things about them.
It might even be quite the opposite. Like, I would say there is this implicit contract in France, like even from the first date.
Exactly.
Whatever something happened or not, it's kind of this implicit... saying that, well, you're kind of supposed to be exclusive.
Yeah, like you're my girlfriend now.
Yeah.
Which can be, like, if you say that to an American person, I think they will have a heart attack. But yeah, it's interesting how different countries
this is
work.
true. This is kind of, yeah, okay. Okay, nice. So, yeah, you mentioned this right from the start. France is one of these countries where the gastronomy is the part of UNESCO living culture or something like that, or heritage status. But do you think younger French are walking away from this history, or actually quite the opposite, you know, like they still keeping it alive?
That's a great question. I mean, I do feel like we have more fast food coming to our country, but I would say it's a worldwide phenomenon. So I don't know if it applies to France specifically. But I would say there's a lot of nice restaurants by young chefs as well that do, you know, farm to table with local products. And I mean, what I've seen in France is that we take food really seriously, you know, where it comes from, how you grow it. And also, I think there's a new effort to really consume responsibly and locally. So there's both sides, and I hope that it continues to be more on that farm-to-table aspect.
Well, you're living proof of that. Yeah. So yeah, there's at least one person.
Yeah, thank you.
You also do some curated guides for things to do in Paris, hidden gems and stuff like this. Well, maybe you can share one of those hidden gems with us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, would you like a restaurant or a place that people forget about or anything?
Well, your pick. What comes to your mind?
For me, well, when I think about like a very touristy place that I like, it's Montmartre. But for example, I would avoid Place du Tertre because it's obviously very touristy. And for me, the heart of Montmartre is really in the little streets that you take and the little corners. And there's this restaurant that actually Dalida used to go to, Le Moulin de la Galette, that I like. And it's kind of hidden, like it's not in the center of Montmartre, so you wouldn't know unless you
There's so many
there.
places with history. I remember my stepfather getting me to Le Procope.
Well, that's a great one. The oldest one in Paris, too.
Yeah, well, I didn't know at the time. But apparently they still have a table because Voltaire used to go there and broke a table. And apparently, I don't know if it's true. I mean, they do have a table and it's broken.
That's really cool.
But, so there's all those restaurants who have stories like this.
Yeah.
And so you have Carrette, who is like more than 100 years old.
And it's crazy because you live here, but you always discover something new. Like, it never stops to amaze you. So.
That's right, right. So okay, there is a lot of cliche around that French food culture, but also, like you were saying, we like to go, to the fresh food market. Obviously, we're very fond of like wine, cheese,
all the good stuff.
All the good stuff. But what part of the food culture do you genuinely think is special about France?
Oh, it's very hard to just pick one thing. I think...
Or parts, let's say then.
Yeah, I think what we've mastered over years, and you were just mentioning how like some buildings are so old and some restaurants have been here forever. Well, the food is also like what we're known for, and it's been happening ever since, So I think we have an attention to detail when it comes to food that is unparalleled. Just like from the selection of the ingredients, the way it's done, the techniques. I wish I could cook, like this, like a French chef.
Do you talk about food a lot?
I'm starting to, because I feel like people really like that. So sometimes I like to talk about it.
Good. Well, as a small anecdote about that, because I was having dinner with a friend of mine. She's British, and she has her husband is French.
Okay.
And we were talking about, he's a chef. So I'm not, but he was talking about food, so he was passionate. So I was listening. I was very interested in what he was saying, and at some point she interrupted us and said, "Well, guys, you've been talking about snails for 20 minutes. I think it's too much now. We can move on." And actually, we realized we were actually talking about snails.
That's an interesting topic to be.
Yeah, because he has a specific technique from the region he's from that I've never heard of, and so I think we can be quite passionate about
We
this.
are very passionate, and I think we defend it also to the core. Like, if someone tells me that their cuisine is better, I'm like, come on, like French cuisine.
Yeah, we will exactly. We will gather. So there's this show, Emily in Paris. Suppose you've seen at least some of it.
Yes.
It has shaped how millions of people see, well, I'd say France, but let's be honest, mostly Paris. What part or how much of this show do you think is real, and how much do you think is mostly, comedy?
Comedy. Well, I would say, maybe like 30% is real, because the city is beautiful. It is romantic. So I would say that aspect is true. And then, at the end of the day, it's an entertainment. So it doesn't have to be 100% accurate, right? People need to dream as well. And especially right now, I think the times we're living in are a little bit, scary. So we want something that's fun to watch and that doesn't reflect necessarily reality. But yeah, I would say if you ask a French person, it doesn't reflect like how we are completely. But it's a fun interpretation, I would say.
Okay. So
that makes sense.
To bounce on this, because some of your followers have never set foot in France.
Yeah.
They've never been there. But they might be, well, I'll say obsessed, but at least they might be into the French culture. Yeah. If you had to convince them to, well, maybe to move to France, but at least to visit France, they could even move, but to visit France, in one sentence, what would be kind of the argument you would have for like, come on, let's visit France at least. Yeah.
I would say come to France, so you can find beauty in the everyday things.
That's a good catch-up phrase, you know. Well,
Maybe I'll suggest it to
the government.
the government.
That's a good one. And on a broader scale, what do you think? Well, in your opinion, what do you think is attractive to, for example, Americans, British people? You know, why do you think they like France?
Ooh, that's a great one too. Well, there's so much layers to that, I would say, because of course there is the more historical part, the cultural part. With all the museums, we have the access to art exhibitions, which is a huge selling point. And then the second layer, I would say, is more in popular culture. So what you see in movies, what you see in ads, marketing, all the, you know, for example, cosmetics. We kind of invented that, perfumes, fashion. So there's so many layers, I think, that people are appealed to. And it goes further than with food as well. The language itself, which people usually find beautiful but hard to learn. So I feel like it's really multi-layered in that case.
Oh, you're right. And I don't know if this is true. I've heard this anecdote about, like, your perfumes you were saying, like we kind of created that because Louis XIV, at this time, they had a belief that disease were transmitted through water. And basically bathing like could get you sick. Yeah. So no one was bathing, and
it could get stinky.
It could, and like you kind of hire alchemists to find a solution.
Yeah.
And they came up with that, you know, bottle, like scent in a bottle.
Yeah, I think it's still a stereotype that people have, because I remember I went on a school exchange to New York when I was a teenager, and the first thing they told us when they knew we were a French group was, this is a deodorant, this is how you use it. You have to use the shower. And I was like, what? Like, you're not giving this speech to the German or the Spanish. Like, what's going on?
You're French.
Yeah, so I think it's still a stereotype people have from that time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think. Well, speaking of stereotypes, again, I think it's funny because French and American, because those cultures specifically, they're seen as, well, both similar and very different. Like, Americans might be seen as more passionate sometimes in terms of, you know, debating or, you know, but also because they're more polarized sometimes. But the French might also be more passionate on the dating scene. So, you know, it's the same thing, but not necessarily from the same angle.
Sure.
Who do you think, you know, what's different in relationships? And I'm not necessarily talking about dating, but maybe also with interacting with friends or just people in the streets, you know. Mm-hmm. What do you think is different between the French, well, and Americans, but also other cultures?
That's a great question too. I would say that French people might be a little more judgmental when it comes to daily interactions. And in America, you don't have that feeling. Like, you could talk to anybody, anytime. Start a conversation in line, you know, for your groceries. And so I really like that. But the Americans is how easy for them it is to start a conversation, you know, and people argue that it's not like natural, but I would say no. I like that, you know. I like when someone greets me in the morning, says hi, have a nice day. I think it's good to be part of that positive culture sometimes. And in France, I feel like it's a little more, you know, well, we do love complaining, so you know what.
And you walk through the door, people will judge.
Yeah.
How you dress.
Yeah,
exactly.
What do you say? Where are you from?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You actually mentioned the some of the French iconic brands and, you know, luxury goods, so fancy brands. Do you think, again, we this is part of the infamous heritage of France, but do you think people now take it for granted, or should we be proud of it, or, you know, it's just like yet another thing that we have? Or
I personally am very proud of it. I think everyone should be, because it's also why we're the #1 destination for tourists in the world, because people are attracted to that, and it's also a patrimoine that we have to preserve. So I think it's very important to highlight it. It's something to be proud of.
No, well, I would agree with you, but yeah, no, and it's we have brands sometimes that are so old. I mean, people sometimes don't realize. I mean, France is not the only country, maybe Italy has, but I mean, compared to other more recent countries, like, I don't know, there's some brands that are more than 500 years old.
Yeah.
And so well, some buildings, like you were saying, you know, So no, yeah, no, it's a living heritage. You're right.
For sure.
Well, Lucille, it's been amazing. I could go on like so. I mean, I think we both love France.
Yeah, we do. I think
you told me you would like also to go to the US now in your
Yes.
next chapter.
Yes, actually, I'm planning to move to California if everything goes well next year.
Okay.
And kind of be this bridge between France and America, which I'm already trying to do with my work. But I think both countries are, we have beautiful love story between France and the US. And we are different, but we're also very complementary. So I'd like to continue to highlight that and showcase, what France has to offer in a very authentic way that is accessible to everyone.
That's good stuff. I'll be following that.
Thank you.
Well, Lucille, thank you so much. I'm trying to pronounce your name the English way. But
No, you're doing a great job.
but before we wrap it all up, because we mentioned, your online presence, but where can people get in touch or find you?
So they can find me at French Vibes Club on Instagram, and I also have a website where I sell my guides for Paris and the French art de vivre. So yeah, those are the two platforms I'm mostly active on. Trying to get on TikTok, but not quite there yet.
Well,
so
guys,
we'll see.
this is where to follow her then.
Thank you.
Okay, to find her and follow. Okay. Thank you so much, Lucille.
Thank you,
That's
Fabien,
been wonderful.
for having me.
Thanks.